Well, my name is Vamshi Kurama. I'm a coder, I'm a reader. I wrote a book on Python programming, a modern approach. I'm a technomaniac. I do a lot of work around the technology, and just for some people to know, I'm a menophile. I hear to a lot of music, and I'm a self-learner at heart, and I keep learning every single day. So I have started the company Caravel AI 3 years back. It's a 3-year-old company where we are into artificial intelligence and technology. We've been working with closely working with EdTech startups for the last 3 years, 3.5 years, and we have seen a lot of challenges in terms of how things scale, how things perform with a lot of users, and these are all the challenges. Today's talk is going to present all the challenges that we have faced and how it works under the hood. Help people educate on how things work from time to time and what are the challenges that we face and how hard it is for somebody to create an edtech business and things like that. So my talk today is going to talk about some of the fallacies that we have as part of the current edtech ecosystem to start off with. And then I'm going to talk about the challenges that are as part of the, as I told you, the under the hood things, the things that happen under the hood, and then we will move on to the Q&A. So that's how I have, structured my talk today. So before even jumping on to the talk, I would like to, talk about some of the really important things that normally edtech businesses are into, right? So one is most of the edtech or edupreneurs, to coin to talk about the new word. So people are coming out and then trying to help people learn in different learning formats. And I believe the last 3 years has been extremely this is growing in a exponential scale, for one reason being the pandemic hit so hard and everybody are stuck at homes, but learning is something that never stops. Everybody wants to learn, grow their careers and things like that. So the kind of growth that we have seen in the last 3 years, I think for the last 2 years during the pandemic season and things like that, has been exponential. I believe it have crossed, like, the 10-year old, the technology work that we have been doing, especially, and people trying to learn about different things, has been tremendously growing, every single day. So, and as we talk to many people every single day, these are some of the fallacies that I have heard from the edtech businesses. Most of the edtech businesses, they come to us, they talk about things. Some may argue with me of, okay, this is fine, but I'm gonna deep dive into each and every point that I talk about today, and also show you some of the very interesting and very unique things that we have done in the past 3.5 years. So the things that people talk about, that starting they come to us, and now you would have heard of this newly coined term called no code tools, right? So there are a bunch of tools available in the market where everybody tries to come with this tag of no code tool and build your own platform, entire business with no code tool. So this is one of the most frequent things that people talk about and people come up with, because now that there is a new term in the market, just like AI, which has been there in the past 2 to 3 years. What nobody have actually done AI, but that became a buzzword and people started to do a lot around it. So in the similar way, this no code tools has been there in the last 2 to 3 years of timeline, where everybody are talking about a lot about it and are trying to start their businesses just with no code tools. So I'm also going to talk about why I call this a fallacy in the next couple of my slides. But this is one of the most frequent things that I come across, especially from the entrepreneurs. And Zoom is enough to run an online teaching business. This is also one of the most common thing that I hear from most of the entrepreneurs right now, saying that, okay, I have Zoom with me right now. Let me get a Zoom license and get started with my teaching stuff. So this is something that I, hear a lot from people who initially start off. And the third point that I want to talk about is the multi-content delivery. Doesn't play a role. Videos are just fine. So most of the people nowadays are also trying to come up with a strategy of, you have got some new fancy mics there. You have got some content creation modules. And people are extremely good at videos, and video content also plays an important vital role in the content delivery process. And most of the people also come up with this interesting concept of preparing a video, posting it onto YouTube, and then building a business out of it, which is true, which I'm going to talk about it in detail. But most of the people are, videos are just fine. We don't have any other formats. So some of the common things, right? And then securing and creating video-based solutions are easy. This is one of the most common things that I even hear and take it from the people. So I think there has been one interesting question before I just jumped onto the call. Somebody asking about a video-based solution and how could somebody create or secure a video-based solution. So I'm also going to talk about that. And the cloud credits, you would have already observed this commonly felt and heard and talked by people that, okay, AWS gives me $100,000, Google Cloud platform gives me like a $10,000 and things like that. This is the most common things again I keep hearing. So the reason why I called all these things as fallacies is for one reason. We have seen how it really works as part of the business scheme, and what are the problems that people face and how people are trying to change all these things when they start this word, or when they use this particular thing saying that, okay, Zoom is enough for us to run the business, they come back to us with 100 problems. So that's the reason I have put this as fallacy. So let me now elaborate on this particular, the statements that I have argued right now, saying that these are fallacies, right? So Zoom, so I talked about no-code tools in the beginning. No-code tools are absolutely fantastic for you to prototype a very small portion of business, because no-code tools are helping people a lot in terms of getting their internal tools done. Because every single day we'll not be able to build an application and keep spending a lot of money on building this stuff, because if we are building something, that comes with a cost, that comes with the time and effort, logic. So these no-code tools are absolutely great and fantastic in this particular world. But building an entire business with no-code tools, especially in the education market, is pretty hard, because there are too many parameters that we have to consider while going online or while treating things. So building a complete business with no-code tools might be a bit tricky, right? So that's the reason we want to use no-code tools. We endorse no-code tools, but it will be helpful and it will be great if you can just prototype them, with the no-code tools that are available, but not build an entire business portion with the no-code tools available out there. And then Zoom is enough to start your online teaching business, definitely, for sure, not to run your entire teaching business. The reason why I have put it as part of my slide is that's one of the most frequent things that I keep hearing, that, okay, let me start with Zoom. But once you start with Zoom, one important thing that we have seen is how do you manage a bunch of sessions that are happening. If you have multiple mentors, teachers, how do you manage this conflict management, right? How do you have a process in which you help your students immediately start your Zoom meeting in a day or so? And how do you, again, Zoom licensing comes with a major cost. So how do you manage all these things? So this is the next step that comes into picture, out of which one of the most common and the frequent thing that I also love to stress upon is, obviously the recordings that the Zoom app, the Zoom gives, they can't place it for a year's time on Zoom's infrastructure because it's a costly affair. So these are some of the most frequent problems that EdTech businesses run into, because learning content delivery is a very important and plays a very major piece in terms of the teaching business. And I would say that Zoom is enough to start your online teaching business, but not to run your entire teaching business, because there are hundreds and hundreds of parameters that you'll have to control. And there are, a bunch of things that we'll have to focus on. And yeah, I think the strike of my slide is somewhat missing for this multi-content delivery. So when I use the word multi-content delivery, I am talking about different formats and people learn, right? Some people learn through images, some people learn through videos, some people learn through interaction. And there has been some of the scientific research that's done in the past that videos are really good, but they aren't just fine, right? The reason being, everybody has their own way of interacting with people. Everybody has their own way of, the teacher has his or her learning process. The student also has his or her learning process in which somebody tries to tackle. So multi-content delivery plays a very major role, because that's what we have seen. People wanted an interactive Q&A kind of objects coming and placed on the screen. And in the similar way, videos are not just fine, because you need a constant change in the kind of interactions that people are trying to make as part of the system. So talking about the video-based solution, this is something that I want to stress as well as part of my presentation. Most of the people struggle a lot to secure and create a video-based solution. So initially, most of the people used to build their online businesses as part of YouTube. They used to create an ecosystem of videos. They used to spend a lot of money in the content creation process. And I've seen there's people struggling day in, day out to create this uh, videos, and they put in a lot of effort to create these videos. And but securing and hosting them is a challenge. I'm also going to talk about in the challenges portion of stuff. It's a major challenge in terms of securing these videos. And this is something that I can confidently say that securing and creating video-based solutions are extremely hard, right? And I'm also going to give you an example why it is. So that's some of the things that I want to talk about the videos part. And cloud credits, definitely cloud credits can help you start and test the business. If AWS is giving you $500,000 or $100,000, I think the maximum amount, the limit that they have is $100,000. So $5,000 to $100,000 is the credit that AWS gives you. And these cloud credits will help you start and test the business, but it cannot help you to scale and run the business, right? It takes tremendous amount of effort to use services like AWS or GCP or Azure, for instance, to help you build a better business, to help you scale and things like that. So this is one of the most important things and the fallacies which I wanted to answer as part of this presentation. So these are some of the things that come to my mind, and these are the most common things. There are other things as well, but these are some of the most common things that I hear and I talk about, and I see people talking about, which I feel are uh, important things to address. And the education community, the EdTech community has to also understand the complexities in which they play out. So these are some of the things that I wanted to talk about in terms of the fallacies, which is slightly, the starting part of my talk. And, it's an emotional coaster ride, right? Everybody who starts in education business, especially I've seen people with, a complete joy, they put in some amount of cash in hand in order to build a business, and they're joyful, and they hit a painful point within a day, 30 days of time as their business grows. And I can confidently say that EdTech businesses are some businesses which immediately, you try to get into your audience at least, on day 10, right? And day 20, you'll be able to probably sell a bunch of, courses online and things like that. And then day 30, probably you hit a pain point. And I'm going to focus on each and every point on why I use this. And if you're able to come out of that in a month's time or 2 months time, probably this varies from individual to individual. But as we grow and as we see some of the craziest challenges that are attended as part of the EdTech businesses, that's how it turns out. Then again, you move on to your joyful phase. So these are a few fallacies, as I told you, and the emotional roller coaster that everybody go into. So let me talk about automobiles for a bit. It might be a small digression that I wanted to take here. The reason why I wanted to talk about automobiles is automobiles are something that, at least for somebody who attends an age of 20-25, everybody, when they start to plan a family, or, automobiles are something that we always talk about. Somebody wants to buy a car, somebody wants to, get a good car. Some people are too ambitious. They want to get a BMW, or some people are like, okay, I'm good with this. I'll get a nice Maruti Suzuki and things like that. These are some regular conversations that we hear a lot, right? So the reason why I wanted to talk about automobiles is we have seen the transition, at least of the so-called electric automobiles that have come up in the recent times. So electric cars are now being one of the most talked automobiles right now. Everybody wanted to take a transition into the sustainable energy and things like that, right? This is something that we have been talking for almost, I believe, two and a half decades for now, but nobody cracked it the real way. The reason why I'm talking about is, especially, I have seen in companies, uh, in colleges, during my engineering and things like that, the mechanical engineers and things like that used to build a electric car just to showcase that, okay, we know how to build a full-fledged car and things like that, at least prototyping the car and things like that. And we've also seen companies like GM and things like that producing electric cars. And when I talk about nowadays, when we talk about electric cars, the first car that comes to our mind is Tesla, right? And it took a hell lot of time and effort, and the reluctance in the society that people like Elon Musk gave to produce a Tesla is extremely crazy. We can imagine the kind of buzz that the car Tesla have created. So the reason why I've put this slide is prototyping is easy, right? Prototyping, even for companies like GM, is easy. You can quickly produce a prototype, get onto the roads and things like that. But to build a fully fledged production ready car and give it out to you in terms of the safety, in terms of the ergonomics, in terms of the fuel consumption and things like that, it takes tremendous amount of time and effort to build such things, right? So that's where I wanted to stress upon a simple thing of prototyping is easy, but productionizing is extremely hard. That's one of the important ground truths that I always see as part of building a business, at least from a technology perspective. The reason being, there are hundreds and hundreds of parameters, especially as an engineer, that we consider while building such businesses, right? So prototyping is extremely easy, at least, I would say easy, but productionizing is going to be super, super hard. You'll have to, talk about various things. So literally, ditching something, if you wanted to construct something new, especially in the EdTech business, it's not that easy, right? So that's one point that I would like to talk about when it comes to productionizing and prototyping. And also, one more example that I wanted to give up before I move on to the actual part of my talk, the challenges that we actually see is, we go, to a store to buy an automobile, and the important point that we talk about is, how much mileage that the car gives, right? Or what's the maintenance cost. If you get a Toyota, the maintenance is extremely low. If you get a Honda, the maintenance is extremely low. So that's also one of the key points that come into picture when it comes to buying something like an automobile, which is of getting it onto a lower cost of maintenance and things like that. The reason why I talked about this story as well in terms of the maintenance is getting something costly is not just fine. You'll have to maintain it in the future in terms of making it ready for people, or maintaining it on a monthly basis. These all things have to be remembered while you productionize something as well. So that's also something that I'm going to talk about in my next part of the presentation. So this finishes almost the starting parts of the talk that I wanted to give. So now comes the very important parts that video, the challenges that we face as part of the system, right? What are they under the hood? So this is the main portion of my talk, where I'm going to talk, every detail that we have faced, in the past. So let me talk about, I'll pick it up from one of the fallacies that I talk about is video engineering, right? Because most of the people currently are producing content with videos. So when I talk about is video engineering, I say video engineering is super hard for one reason, which I'm going to give it to you. So when somebody uploads a video, so let's say you upload a video to YouTube, or you upload a video to Vimeo, a platform like Vimeo, and things like that. So the next thing is it takes some time for it to process, and then it comes onto the system. So there are layers of technology that happens, the layers of processes that happen when somebody uploads a video, which I'm going to talk about right now. So this is the typical process that we run through when we talk about video engineering. So normally people upload a file. You upload something like an MP4 or MKV or a high definition file that comes out from your camera. So once you upload the video, the first step that we do, this is the under the hood process that we follow, is to convert this video into a proper format. So the typical format that we go with is MP4, right? So you upload a 1 GB video. The immediate step that we do is convert this 1 GB video of whatever format it is into an MP4 file. And then the second step that we do is convert this MP4 file uh, into multiple resolutions. Let's say if there is a single file, now there are 3 files with you, 1080p. Imagine that the file is of 1080p resolution. We convert this into a 1080p, 720p, and 420p video into different resolutions. Now we have 3 files. One file happened to be 3 files right now. One file is 1080p, the second file is 720p, and the third file is 480p. So whoever are not aware of the peaks that I'm talking about, it's just high quality, medium quality, and the low quality that typically things go. You would have already seen this multi-resolution as part of the YouTube and systems like that. The third step that we do is take these 3 files. In this example that I'm trying to state, we have 3 files as part of the output right now. Take these 3 files and cut them into 10-second chunks or segments, right? I'll tell you why we do this and why it's important for us to do it. So we cut that down into 10-second chunks. So imagine if there is a 60-minute video, we will cut that into 10-second chunks, right? So I'm going to give you the example also in the next slide. So we cut that into 10-second chunks, and then we encrypt each and every segment. So we encrypt for the reason of security. I'm also going to talk about security and how it works. We encrypt this each and every segment, and then we create a master file. There is something like a master file which contains the TOC, the index of all the files, right? And then we upload it back to the storage and use the encrypted keys to play the videos or appears. So this is a typical process that runs when you try to upload a video. This is all happening behind the scenes, right? This typically takes about, somewhere between 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depending upon the size of the video. If the size of the video is huge, somewhere around 6 GB, 7 GB, it typically takes about 20 to 40 minutes. If the size of the video is just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it will take about probably 5 to 10 minutes. So it basically depends upon the size of the video, the quality of the video, and which you do. But this is the entire process that runs behind the scenes. Now I'm going to talk about, let's consider an example just to give you more clarity on why we do this and how we do this. So imagine that we have a 10-minute video. So a 10-minute video is going to be 600 seconds for you. And then we cut that into 10-second segments. And we have 60 segments right now with 3 resolutions. And we have 180 files with 1 master file. So 1 file is now changing into 181 files, right? So this is the process in which we do. And now we might have this question. Everybody might get surprised. Why are we doing this? Why is it so complex? So I've just uploaded 1 single file, and this guy I've made it 181 files, right? So it might be a bit, complicated for you on to understand why we do this. We do this for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, the internet bandwidth, that's available on the planet right now, because video consumes a lot of bandwidth, and everybody has different internet connections, right? Some people have a 3G connection, some people have a 2G connection, some people are still on much of a less than 2G connection, some people are on 5G connection. So connections matter, right? One is the internet bandwidth, and the second problem is videos are, if you imagine carefully, if you download a PDF, if you use a download of a PDF button, you'll always be able to open the file only when the PDF download is complete. You'll not be able to open this file during the download phase, right? Only once the download of the file is complete, then you get to know that, okay, I have a full-fledged file, let me open it. But if you look at the videos right now, you can open it at any point in time, right? You can just scroll it to the middle. Netflix, you like skim it down, stop it there, watch a movie, and OTT platforms you do this. So video on the internet is something that you open it quickly and do it, right? And the third thing is obviously production. Netflix, even Disney, everybody spends lots and lots of money, and these days EdTech platforms, because they spend tremendous amount of money to produce this content, and they try to uh, place it as part of the system. So obviously production comes in picture. So let me now take you to an example of what happens when you start to play a video. So here is an example of a 60-second 60-minute frame that is placed. And as I told you, the first step is cutting this down, take 3 resolutions. Here we have 720p, 360 and 240. You have a different resolution now, and you have a different network, right? So imagine you're going in a train, you wanted to watch a movie, and as you're going in a train, the signal constantly jumps back and forth, right? You're on a good connection, you're on a bad connection, you're on a medium, poor and intermediate connections. So the train goes faster and faster, you shift from one to the other, right? And you would have observed this most commonly, that suddenly your video, which is of high quality, changes into a lower quality, and suddenly you would have seen again to a better quality, and that shift automatically happens. So this process is called ABRing, adaptive bit rating, that we try to, that's the reason why we run through all the processes, 7 steps. And as I told you, the example of a train, so the first chunk, the first 10-second chunk happens to be one segment from the 240p connection that you have placed, right? And then the second segment is this 360p part, and then the third you're on the similar signal, and then fourth you came down here to a Wi-Fi. You have a better clarity right now, and again you go back to 4G, and that's how it works, right? So if you can see the frames, you have literally, when you watch a movie, you'll not feel this. This is actually the player work and things like that, which the players are automatically constructed in a way to showcase all these things. Is the switching automatically happens, and the quality of the video changes accordingly, right? So this is how it goes behind the scenes. It's an extremely fascinating thing, behind the scenes under the hood, because we put in a lot of effort to build such complex ecosystems as part of the video and things like that. Yeah, so this is about video, and a great use case to show how hard it is to manage videos and secure them. As I told you, we also encrypt each and every chunk, so as to, if somebody gets one chunk, have hacked it, they'll not be able to get a second segment, the second chunk. So that's how we do the encryption process and things like that. So this is about video engineering and how it runs behind the scenes. So that's challenge number 1. So I'm going to talk about challenge number 2, which is integrations. Integrations is something that people do constantly, because there are hundreds and hundreds of SaaS tools in the market. You have a CRM by HubSpot or Salesforce and things like that. You have in Google Meets and things like that. So people are trying to integrate, which is a really good thing. Integrations are really required, and people just think of integrating it as part of the platform, but it requires a ridiculous amount of monitoring. I'll also explain this to you why. Typically, these platforms, the vendors that provide you APIs, the word is called the API, you would have already heard of it. Typically, they have a documentation in place. When they roll out something, they have a documentation in place. And they always wanted to have this concept of, making changes as part of the system and things like that, and make sure that their API is meeting the criteria of what the people require. So they're trying to break things, quickly, and they also try to roll out, changes to their API and things like that. And that's the reason you require ridiculous amount of monitoring when you integrate things. So whether it might be breaking of APIs, that means the change in format, right? Because you would have constructed it in a way that whatever data that comes into your system, because when you're integrating it, the Zoom's data or the Google Drive data or something else is coming and sitting on your system, right? You're on your platform. So it should understand, both needs to be in sync to receive data or else send data and things like that, vice versa. So you should always remember what API changes are being done by the other vendor and things like that. And of course, rate limiting is also one important thing. You can't go ahead and deal with the scale that you wanted to deal with. Uh, Zoom, for example, for instance, gives you a 60-minute per request rate limiting. That means you'll only be able to do it at maximum of 60 minutes. You will not be able to schedule more sessions more than for 60 times a minute, right? So there are limitations in terms of how many times you're going to access the API. So this requires tremendous amount of filtering and monitoring in terms of getting your API ready for anything. And sometimes they blandly they straightforward put it to you saying that this definition is no longer being maintained. Please visit our API documentation to get started and things like that. This is something that the exact phrasing is something that I've pulled it from the internet. I also would love to also share a snippet later. But yeah, this is something that people write when they are maintaining APIs and things like that. Suddenly, there will be a surprise from the Zoom and sometimes Google Drive and things like that. They'll give you a limited amount of time for you to change, but already you would have put in some amount of time and effort to build this integration, and monitoring it, as I told you, requires a ridiculous amount of monitoring. So, and also it's important to monitor. So this is the second challenge that I would like to talk about. Uh, moving on about talking about this content management with content management normally comes with zero flexibility. I'll also talk about why and why I use the word zero flexibility. So this is something that I've used in my initial presentation or the initial slides, that every teacher has their own way, every learner also has their own way, right? Some people use images for conversations, videos, text-based posts, stories, polls, live video, GIFs. So all these different types of content that is coming up needs to be presented to the student, because as I told you, everyone has their own way, and it's important for everybody to get going and to have an amalgamation of things for a better content delivery and things like that. So it's super important for you to uh, place this as part of the student and teacher, but most of the platforms doesn't do it, right? So if you even look at systems like Udemy and things like that, 90% of the portion of Udemy runs on video, and they're trying to put in a lot of effort to get new types of content engagement, for example, Q&A kind of thing, having a test, having a poll, stories. These are all coming up, slowly as the time grows. And now that they're a newly IPO'd company, so many things started to change in their way as well. So a mere Google to hold your content is not just enough, right? You cannot just have a Google Drive shared folder, or a Dropbox kind of an ecosystem or a present that you can dump in all your work there. Instead, you need a course authoring canvas, right? I've used the word authoring. I have stressed on it. The reason being, for me, an educator's mind is an ocean full of ideas. And so it just shouldn't be just limited to that. It has to be much more than that. It should be like a fluidly band canvas for getting things done as part of the ecosystem. So it's not just the same, and it requires a lot of data modeling behind the scenes. The engineering challenges that, okay, how do, now that it's not, we'll have to prepare a fluid canvas, there are hundreds and hundreds of parameters that we have to take care before we give it back to the author. So yeah, this is one of the important things that I also wanted to talk about. And there is a lot of challenge that comes with having to create this course authoring canvas, because as I use the word canvas is like an open sheet, and it varies from time to time and varies from person to person. And it's not just a Google Drive or a Dropbox clone. So it has to be much more than that. So this is the last thing that I want to talk about. The last challenge, scaling your technology stack for your education businesses will break the bank. It's a huge statement, but let me explain it to you why. So imagine that you wanted to host an assessment engine or an assessment platform, and if you wanted to build it on your own, right? Let me give you an example how it works. So normally, if an assessment is happening, you have like 10 people or 30 people taking a test for an hour or so. And you might want to go with a vendor, or you might want to build your own thing, but there are a lot of complications that arise, because when the power for one user goes off, you want to capture all the answers of his or her session. Two is you might want to track a lot of metrics around the test. Three is you might also want to have more student writing the tests. So the reason why I use the word break the bank is that it takes a lot of traffic for us to manage these servers, right? So imagine a scenario. This is how it works. You have the internet, you have the clients in the sense, your desktops, mobile phones, or different computers that come up. So you have all these clients as part of the ecosystem, and then people try to start the test, right? So these are the typical stuff that happens when user enters a question. There is a hit to the server. User answers the question. There is a hit to the server. User leaves the question, moves down to the next question. There is a hit to the server. So on an average, 3 hits are taken by the server per question, right? And I have completely ignored the concept of user changing the answer, right? So again, that's a hit to the server. So nearly an approximation of an ideal scenario of people answering questions, the server takes about 3 hits per question, right? So if you have 300 users and 60 questions, so the server is already taking 32,400 hits, which requires a tremendous amount of scale. That means you will have to spend a lot of cloud cost here and manage, because you would have already observed this. Most of the companies, including, when there is a test recently, conducted by TCS, the system fails, not for the reason that they haven't built a good system. They have built a good system to handle the assessments and things like that, but the scale that the server takes is tremendous. Imagine 10,000 people taking a test, the server is taking tremendous amount of heat, and there is tremendous amount of traffic that comes and hits the servers, right? So for 300 users, we have 60 questions. The server is taking, 32,400 hits. But if you take it up a bit, just to 3,000 users and the same 100 questions you have, it's almost close to taking a million hits, which requires probably, if you wanted to scale the machine to take a million hits in an hour's time, it roughly costs you around, I would say 3 to 4 lakhs, right? Because that's the amount of cloud costing that you have to spend. You can still get it down, but if you are doing it in an average PHP or a Python based solution, this is the costing that happens. So here's also one of the challenges that I want to talk about. So these are the more of what happens under the hood and how it performs and the things that happen. And yeah, these are some of the challenges that we have seen as part of growing EdTech businesses, and whether somebody is building these as part of their technology ecosystem, the education business, or they get it from another vendor. These things needs to be taken care by the vendor or as the person who is building it, right? And these are some of the challenges that really exist, and with the current set of things that we have seen in the past 3 years. And going online, you have more users, more people having to access your platform, and also it takes about tremendous amount of work to get these things done.